All right. Hello. This is the Momentum System meeting for November 26, 2024. And today is an open session. The one thing I wanted to make sure to check on with everybody is project trackers. And Elizabeth, you had a question about that, so we can definitely talk about that. But just make sure everybody's getting those in, happening, and like what any questions you might have. Just let's make sure to talk about those things. Okay, Jennifer's here as well. Good. So, my usual, if you have any questions, like specific questions, and we can start with Elizabeth's because she posted them in the feed earlier, then feel free to post those in the chat or raise your hand and just, unmute when there's time. Or if not, then what I'll do is I'll go around and we'll just do the something good and something that's been a challenge just to kind of get things rolling. So just kind of think about that a little bit as we get going. But Elizabeth, let's start with your question. I don't know if you saw my reply there. So your question is, it's helpful to see how projects and tasks differ, but not yet tracking with quota tasks. It is, and you say such a game changer, so my wacky brain just can't wrap or believe it fully. It sounds too good. Understandable.
Yeah.
It honestly, it's not that, you're still doing tasks and stuff. I think the difference between using quota tasks and not using quota tasks is profound because it changes your orientation around engaging with your whatever it is you're doing. Whatever it is you're doing does not necessarily creative projects. Like if you're thinking about it in terms of now I am here doing this and then I'm going to be somewhere else doing something else, it gets to that mindful presence thing that we are going for. And removes this pressure to finish X on X date. And that is the main way we've learned to finish anything is by finishing X on X date. And then it's ironic and painful right now because I have a 14-year-old son who is deeply resistant to finishing homework and doing assignments that he thinks are dumb. Like he is not my daughter, who's 16, almost 17, she'll be 17 in a few weeks. She's just like, I want to get good grades. I'm gonna do the thing. She's in AP US history right now, and she has to read two, like, I don't know, 20-page dense chapters of US history textbook every week and take extensive notes and take quizzes every week and, and all this other stuff. And she is she's just on it. Like she just does that stuff. And now, could she do that when she was a freshman like him? No, but she still felt the internal push to like comply and to do the thing and to saw the value in that, where he's like, I do not see the value in this. He's a questioner, I think, not a rebel. Like he'll do things he wants to do. He's like me, I'm a questioner. Like this seems dumb, I'm not doing it. And I'm in this weird position of being like, you have to do this thing. I don't care if you think it's dumb. You're 14. You don't get to decide. Do the thing. Because if you don't do the thing, you're going to get C's in class. And then, it has like ripple effects through your life. It's like he can't decide now what his career is going to be. Yes, I will talk. I see you, Ree. But let me just finish my spiel here. Like you his answer to what he wants to do with his time is play video games. And like, no, that is not like he also writes on his own and does other stuff, and that's awesome. But like yeah, it's a weird place to be because I'm like, yes, it is dumb. It's dumb, but you have to do it. Anyway, Ree, yes, I can see you dying inside over there. So please.
I'm not really. I just feel for your son because it is dumb. And there isn't actually one path. And my son got all C's in high school, but then he got into UC Santa Cruz on the basis of his 2 years of gap, and now he's getting straight A's because he cares. So
yeah, there's all kinds of paths, and I'm aware of that. I
know you are.
You
It's just hard to hear a little bit from the outside.
Yes. and from the inside also, like it is very hard to hear myself saying this stuff. It just sounds
Okay, thank
idiotic
you.
after.
Okay, thank you for the
Yeah.
space for that. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Yes, there are lots of paths. But like it's so easy for him to, it would be so easy for him to just do the thing. Like it's not that difficult. And he's very capable of it. So, he does not have ADHD, he does not have any other, executive function issues. He just doesn't want to do it. And so I would love to live in a world where that's fine, but then he just, would just play video games all the time. So that's not great. Um, okay, Jennifer, we're not answering specific questions right now. Basically, we're getting into Elizabeth's question on the feed about
Oh,
quota tasks.
what
Yeah.
is quota tasks?
So quota tasks we talk about in I forget which module it's in. It's in the act phase, where a quota task is a time bound task as opposed to an outcome based task. So it's just my word for like a time delimited task time. So if once you create a project path, and so you're like, this is the list of things that need to happen in order to get from point A to point B, you can use quota tasks to complete those things rather than I'm going to finish X this week and just say I'm going to spend an hour, I'm going to spend, two 30 minutes things, I'm going to spend every single day for 3 hours, like whatever works in your life. But then you're just moving through the task list, the order of actions, not even task list, the order of actions to complete the thing in the amount of time that you have available for it, which is essentially what we do anyway. Like that's basically what actually happens. But if you define it in an outcome-based way, instead of defining it in terms of time, it can bring on a lot of self-punishment and a lot of guilt around not hitting various targets. And so this avoids that. And then the other thing is, slipped my mind, but it'll be back. There's another thing. Let's see. I don't know. It'll come back. But anyway, yes, Lisbeth.
Well, my questions were really about keeping it simple because I think I do have some executive function issues because I mean for years I was able to juggle all kinds of projects and renovate homes from the 18th century and take care of kids and family and have a job with like a gazillion tasks. But I just don't have the energy. I just don't have the capacity. I'm burnt out from that. So that's one issue that I'm starting to realize. And then, returning to something that I haven't been practicing as much because I haven't had the time, like returning to my art. So then the question was, how do I keep it so simple that I've been thinking, okay, I want to make this project that has these different steps. So I can see that better now. And I've that a quota task, and it's good you said time because here it's like a little ridiculous experiment of making a little artist book. And I have some other weird little fun little artist books. I've been like making little prototypes and making little and I have I have like a gazillion little book prototypes that I'm working on. Half baked, half finished, distributed all over the place, dispersed. But they make me happy. This is when I looked at my criteria, I was like, okay, what's the actual criteria? It's some kind of, not that it's like happy, but I'm joyfully engaged in doing these weird little books. But I also kind of think they're nonsense in certain way. There's a part of me that says it's not going to go anywhere. That's really
Sure. I mean, no, I understand that inner dialogue. I mean, obviously, that's, it's this outcome-based thinking of like, what is this going to turn into? Is it worth anything?
Right. And there's a remnant of that from my job, which has been so deadline driven. So even though we work backwards and here are the milestones and here are these things for the course or for the whatever, but to actually like trust these little books and that they have a life of their own, which they seem to have, it just kind of blows my mind. So the idea of like spending, I mean, I can keep it low, like 5 hours a day making silly, or 5 hours a week making silly books, and then just having a good time and being in kindergarten with it, that would lead somewhere. And I went to this great workshop with this woman who was definitely in that's what she does. And it was so wonderful to meet her. And then I can have all kinds of, fancy plans, but it seemed to me the simplest thing, and it's not to overshare, but like, is it just to make these artist books? It's like, that's it.
Can
I
it
mean,
be just that?
you can it?
I mean, why not? Why can't it?
it's, it's like, am I allowed to find something that for some reason or another feels like it's not encased in all? If I leave the ambition of it out, do you know what I'm saying? Then the joy rises, then the joy goes up. So it's like, the more I wrap it into, oh, it's becoming this or it's becoming that, the more it just makes me feel, oh God, I'm tired before I even start.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, agreed.
all these piles of stuff, oh, it's senseless. Makes forget it, right?
Right. And you already know the answer to this. Like you were telling me the answer to this, which is just engage in the process.
Right.
And whenever you feel yourself going towards what is this turning into, you go, you know, it'll reveal itself down the road.
I
You're an
know.
artist. You know
And I
how,
know, and I teach this stuff, but man, it's just like the thing that's such a game changer is I might say one thing like to my students and want to mentor it, but man, I have trouble doing it now.
Mhm. I mean, it's hard because also you're a professional and you are used to having people respond to your work and, have thoughts about it and engaging in a professional capacity with this stuff. I mean, that's all real. And you have to have, like, I think one of the more damaging things about MFA programs and, conventional art education is the requirement that everything you're working on has an artist statement, that
Yeah.
you always have to have some kind of clear like motivation and reasoning and sort of theoretical framework for what you're doing. And I know from myself as an artist and like the hundreds and hundreds of people I've worked with as artists that mostly artists make stuff because they like making it. They just feel it feels like something and they want to do that thing. Occasionally you have somebody who has a mission and they're like, oh, this is about this social issue
Right.
or this is
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
But the requirement that that is how we think about our work, I think is very damaging to that
Mhm.
internal um, impulse to make things that are cool.
Mhm.
So this is going to be an ongoing thing for you, I know. But I think,
It's a deep
but I,
rooted thing that's coming up in a new version. Deep
but
root.
but I
Yeah.
want you to recognize it when it comes up. I
Mm.
want you to hear your should monster
Oh,
rear up and like write down the things it's saying and figure out, do you agree or not? When these things like write it down and go like, is this true for me? Or is this a self-protective, mechanism of some kind that's trying to prevent me from doing this thing?
right.
Right. So the should monster chapter or the module has a bunch of stuff about this in the reflect phase, a bunch of
Yeah,
exercises and
I heard your material from yesterday last week. It was really good. The Japanese have these yokai monsters that
Mhm.
like can inhabit everything. They're demons. They can even live in your kitchen utensils and they'll like make havoc. I
Yeah.
think I have a whole set of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
So yeah, so what I want to encourage you to do is do the first exercise, which is writing down the shoulds. Like write down the
Mhm.
shoulds. And I know it's painful sometimes to acknowledge that they're there, but when they're in front of you, then you can say, like, as an adult and as a teacher and as a person with life experience, is this a true statement? Or is this some kind of loop I'm getting into and some kind of thing where part of me is trying to protect myself, from disappointment or from embarrassment or from whatever? Does that matter when I'm engaging with this art and making artist books?
Right.
You know, and then you can keep it in front of you. And like when it comes up, you go, oh, I already thought that through. Like I know the answer to that. And and it can help you kind of, again, get a little distance, a little strategic kind of perspective on this monologue that goes on.
Mhm.
My perspective as a teacher, as an artist, is you absolutely clearly need to be just making books without a thought to where they go. Clearly, and they may go somewhere at some point. They may become something that is like there's an end result of it that's a show and a whatever, but you cannot be thinking about that right now because you don't know where it's going to go. And if you start thinking about that end, you're going to start closing off possibilities and shutting doors and not finding where it wants to go and where you want to go with it.
Mhm.
And maybe you need that. Like, listen to what I just said when your should monster is like, what's this for? Why are you doing it? It's a waste of time. And go, if I start, thinking about end results right now, I'm not going to find the coolest possible version of this, which is only going to happen through open-ended exploration.
Yeah, I believe that. Or I can feel it when I'm in that place
Hmm.
mentally and sometimes with other people and with materials around me. It's like finally I can like just be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I talk a lot about this pottery stuff I'm doing. And the reason is that that's the kind of activity is for me is like, there are a lot of with that, there are a lot of sort of like endpoints and dopamine reinforcing like checklist things like that's in greenware. Now I have to glaze it now to whatever. But there's no end. I'm not going to make a shop. Like I'm not becoming a ceramics artist and showing stuff, Like I'm
Mm.
interested in where I go with this. I'm interested in, maybe getting involved in sculpture and doing stuff like that. Like,
Yeah.
but I don't know what it's going to look like or where it's going to lead me.
Mm.
And that's cool and exciting because I have to say, I've like basically never had that with my art. Like I've been like you, where
Mm.
every time I'm making, like I'll make a painting and I'm like, that's the cover to my next comic book. Like
Right. All
everything's
that. Yeah.
utilitarian, everything
And
has
that
like,
whole illustration background that I also have.
Mhm.
Yeah. So it's commercial, it's yeah.
It's not just that it's commercial, but it's like this thing can slot into this, and then I've taken care of that. And there's this kind of
Mm.
real strategic thing
Mm.
about it, not just like exploratory
Mm.
art process. And that's my brain and also my, sort of my orientation towards like comics and commercial art as opposed to,
But that's so
open-ended.
helpful because with all this planning, it can seem like we're planning, planning, planning. And then it's like, it can almost seem like a contradiction and I think you've said it a few times, something along these lines, that we plan so that we have the time for the thing that is our creative engine.
Yeah.
So, and part of that is like making the playground ready so that we have that time. It's carved out or whatever it is we do with it to make it good, a good
Yeah.
practice. And I
I
think
mean,
that's,
so much of the planning process I'm teaching you is about saying no and
yeah,
making
so
space,
hard.
right? So making space for white space, thinking, walking, creating, whatever. The only way you get there is by doing some hard decision making and planning around everything else so that it gets
Mm.
out of the way, because
Yeah,
so otherwise it's like on you all the time and you don't have
right,
room for that.
right, right.
And the other thing is planning around projects that do have endpoints. Jess has been working on projects that have specific
Mm.
endpoints, not the
Mm.
book so much. I mean, it will have an endpoint, but like who knows what that's going to be, but like the other projects. And working backwards, creating a project path, like what are the steps and identifying those things. Like when you have something that has an outcome, you can use that and then still use this planning process to create space just to use quota tasks to follow it along.
Yeah,
What you're
yeah. And
talking about
also
right
do,
now is basically an R&D process. There is no outcome yet. There may one day be something where you're like, I have it. I have this idea. I want to make this thing. I want it to look like this. These are the things I need to do. And then you're going in the creative engine, collect phase. What are the pieces I need? Decide how do I do that? Act, complete it. And you're in
Mm.
that cycle and you can use the project path for that. But like what you're doing right now is a creative practice, open-ended, unending creative practice.
Yeah,
So forward planning, which means carving out space on a regular basis for this thing. That's
yeah.
what it means. And then that's the simplest way to do it. So you're like, well, what's the simplest way to do this? Is to use forward planning for this
But I
particular.
was thinking, you know, how do I track it? I mean, if I say, okay, I'm
You
making
literally have a star chart. You literally have like a grid on the wall, which is like Monday through Friday, I'm going to spend, an hour a day or half an hour a day or however many times a week. And I get a gold star every time I do it. And what you're doing is I'm spending time with this without any outcome required.
great. So that's because your art school examples look like that.
Well, the
Some
art school examples I have are actually more, I'm going to open this lesson and show you these different examples that I have in
yeah.
here. But the art school example is outcome based because they are like, here's the outcome of this project that I need to complete. We're going to work backwards. What are the steps? And then they have their cards, which are like, I'm going to do this step, this step, this step. The thing that happens is they underestimate how long things are going to take. Hofstadter's law. They end up moving things around, and then they're very distressed by not hitting their internal deadlines. That again, like that may come out of this open-ended practice that you have an outcome-based project that you want to complete.
I do, I do in some way. Yeah,
You
yeah, I
have
do.
one project, I know that is
Yeah.
that, but this other thing that you're doing, developmental kind of thinking and just art making, is not that, right?
Mm,
And
mm,
so I think this is an important distinction to make. So
mm.
let me share this. In terms of your project tracking, like this is the kind of thing. Let's see here. Hang on. This here,
Okay, rewards. Yeah, those.
right?
Okay.
This is like for 6-year-olds. That's what you
Yeah,
need.
good. I'm only 6.
So this is like, week this, I got to do this, week this, I got to do this. Does it change all the time? Yes. But and that's the flexible part of the flexible containers, like you can move it around, but it's still like, here are the tasks in the order that I need to do them. This here is a forward planning planner where it's like that I need to do this many things. And you can do it physically, you could do it digitally, like whatever you want to do. I have things that I plan. I have both. I have certain projects that are, there's a path, there's an end date, there's deadlines, there's whatever, and I'm using some kind of tracker to keep tasks on target and whatever. And then I also have practices, things that don't I don't intend to end. Spending time with my children, exercising, whatever, like, and I track those things so that I'm paying attention to them.
And how do you track them?
It's similar to this, but it's digital.
Okay.
It's like
Yeah.
a thing where at the end of the week, I track through the week. I like make a note to myself, and at the end of the week, I count up the number of times I did whatever,
Oh,
and I have it in a thing where at the end of the quarter, I can go like, I kept on track. I didn't, like, what should I do to make sure I have more room for this because I didn't quite hit my, what I wanted to do with it.
Okay.
Um, so that's the main one. This example is the main one that's just a, repeating thing. But there's also in here, is it in this one? Now I can't remember where I have the actual um Notion pages and trackers. In here.
Project based. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, here you go. So this is just a Google sheet or Google page, Google
Okay.
Doc version of this. So you just write down what you want to be doing and you just are checking it off.
Okay.
One page, and that's it. So you can use this exact one, which is in this lesson, or you can make your own. You can print this out and use it on paper,
Mhm.
You may not have whatever this is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things you want to be doing every week. This is like one per week essentially. So like you do this X number of times. Did you achieve that X number? It's not maybe as granular as you want. You might want something that's more blown out.
Right.
So it's like, I'm going to do this Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or whatever, right? Again, it's
Great.
like the purpose of all of this is when we're paying attention to practices like this, we're more likely to do them. When we think ahead about them, like I was saying earlier today about the contingency plan was and doing the lesson brief, the idea that when you're thinking ahead about when and where am I going to do this thing, what's it going to be like, what do I need, what are the things that are going to come up for me, then you're more prepared to actually do it.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah. So does
Thank
that answer the question you were asking then about?
It does. It's good to go back a couple of, also because I was so busy last week, I kind of had to carve out and just
Mhm.
do my teaching. So it's good to really go back to the simplest possible way, because I set myself the goal. I was going to hand something in this week because it's the end of November. You said end of November if we want to hand something in. That's now, right?
Yeah, I mean, the idea is that you build this thing this week, like
Yeah.
create it for yourself and start using it by this week. And then you would turn it in by the end of January. Like show me evidence that you're using it.
Okay, so we don't send you anything until January.
You don't need to. I mean, I wanted to check with you and see if you need support around making decisions with it, which you do. So we talked about it. So basically what I would expect
I
from you
definitely
is
do. And
a piece of paper with check marks on it or something where you're like, I did this many times. That's what
Yeah.
I'm looking for.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks for the
Yeah, no
review.
problem.
I
Thanks
hope
for
it didn't bore the rest of you, but yeah, I really needed a rehash.
I think
Thanks.
it's so important, and it's like one of the hardest things we do is to allow ourselves to have that kind of free space.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
Jess, do you want to go next?
Sure. I don't have anything specific. I'm feeling very discouraged.
Mm,
Feeling very discouraged around this the personal brand and the coaching thing that I was trying to move into. And it's this season. It's really hard with my primary business struggling because of what's happening in the tech industry still. So a lot of my energy and focus have been there because that's what makes me money. That's what puts food on the table is my consulting firm. So had to really kind of shift gears there. Um, and the coaching thing is just it's not getting the traction that I was hoping it would get. Which, it was kind of experimental, so I'm not taking it personally, but I'm definitely feeling that discouragement and should I even continue spending my time on this kind of feeling. So I like sat with that last night and I just, I know when I get to this point where I'm not getting a result and I really need to assess, do I continue doing this? Have I given it enough time to say yes or no, this is working or not? I know when I get to this point, I need to remind myself why I did it in the first place, kind of come back to my why.
mhm.
So I just did some journaling last night and really sat with the why of this and thought about, okay, why coaching? Why did I make that choice? Why did I decide to move in that direction with this body of work? And what I realized is coaching was just a container for really what I want to do, which is to serve with this vast and varied expertise and experience that I have gathered in my life. I'm a very unique human. Like not to toot my own horn, but I've done a lot of really interesting things and I have a lot of really, useful knowledge that seems to help people. And I wanted to create a container to do that with more intention
Mhm.
instead of just being the person that people come to for whatever writing challenge. I wanted to create something with more intention. And coaching seemed like a good container for that. But in the end, it's just a container. You know, the underlying drive to take everything that I have built, everything that I've learned, all these hard lessons, all of these skills that I've grown, and serve people with them, that's still there. So I don't know exactly where that's taking me, other than if coaching is not the right container, I'm okay with that.
Mhm.
Maybe there are other containers that could work for this. And you know, I have a personal brand. I do. It exists because it's me. And I put together that website that I'm very proud of, jessicamaring.com. Don't really need to do anything else there. That's solid. Um, Maybe I just need to spend a little bit more time listening for a while before deciding on, okay, this is the next thing that I'm going to offer. Um, so I think I just want to spend some more time listening, listening and talking to people. Yeah. So that was like the journaling that I did last night. And I also asked myself the question of why did I choose the audience that I did, which for the personal brand, the audience that I chose is founders and business leaders. And the reason that I chose that audience initially was because I love to encourage really smart people to put their smarts down in writing. Writing is such a powerful medium for thought, for processing, for sharing our expertise, for so many things. Writing is such a powerful tool. And most leaders want to do it in some way, shape, or form. If they've built up that expertise, it kind of naturally spills over into writing. And so it seemed like a natural place for me to be. I work with leaders through Horizon Peak. It's a natural place for me to work as, possibly a coach. But when I really, really let myself be honest last night in my journaling, why I chose that audience is because I know they'll pay. And that's important, because I don't know if you guys have ever been in a position where somebody wants something from you and they're not willing to pay for it. That's a really difficult position to be in, especially, and I find it's especially hard when I really want to help someone. I see that if I step in on something for them, it can really make a difference for them. And when they can't or won't pay me for that time, it's really hard for me. I have to really fight the urge to just, give away my services, give away my time, give away my IP for free because I really want to help. And I don't want to be in that position. I've been in that position too many times. I don't want to be in that position anymore. I want to work with people who are willing to pay for what I bring to the table. And that's really, I think, why I chose the founder audience, is because they are willing to pay for certain kinds of help. And yeah, I just have to kind of be honest with myself about that. There's a money component. And when I realize there's a money component of what I'm trying to do, man, it kind of took some of the joy out of it.
Mm.
So I'm a big believer in therapy. I love therapy. I think it's a great thing. It's certainly in certain seasons of life. And I had a therapist once who told me to stop putting money goggles on. Every time I wanted to do something, I'd think about, okay, but how do I make money with that? And she said, you got to take the money goggles off. Take the money goggles off. It's okay to do things just for the joy of it. Like,
Well, and
Liz
ask
was
yourself
talking
too, I think, like, would you want to do this? Is there a way in which you would want to do this work
about.
without looking for it to be a revenue producing thing? Because as you say, you really like to help. But I think the problem is having the feeling exploited. It's not so much that you're doing
Yes.
stuff for
Yes,
no payment, but feeling like people are taking advantage of you.
exactly. That's exactly it. Yeah.
And so finding a way to do it where you feel like you are sailing this ship,
Mhm.
but it doesn't necessarily have to do with money, I think is the way into this for you.
Yeah.
Does it answer everything? Probably not, but like that's, I think that's a start. Like, I have a similar question around the Creative Focus Workshop content where it's increasingly difficult to sell.
Mm. Yeah, it's a
Um,
tough market right now.
very tough market right now, and it's never been easy. We're selling something where people would need to pay to get help with their creative work. Never been easy.
Yeah.
Um, so, like it's not really working for me, like as a business at this point. But it's such like I feel so strongly that this is valuable, like a valuable framework, and like I've come up with ways of thinking about this and doing things that are like they cannot be lost. Like I don't want this to be lost in the world. And honestly, I'm thinking about writing a book, not, like I have a book, but like rewriting my book or writing a new book um, to capture this stuff, knowing that it will make me no money. Like it will not pay for it, like it
Yeah.
will not pay for the time that it will take to write the thing. But that, that like I need that for me. Like I need that. And I feel like it is of a service to, I know already the book that I have, which is very flawed compared to like where I'm at now, has helped so many people make progress. And it's like really important to me. So, that's the kind of I have not focused on that or thought about writing a book for years because I have, I need to make revenue and I don't want to feel
Yeah.
like I'm just, you know, and the coaching actually has been super helpful in developing the actual ideas. And so in that sense, I would encourage you to consider being open to this continually. But,
Mm.
as we were talking about initially with the coaching, I would encourage you to be open to opportunities to turn a conversation with somebody who's asking you questions into a sales conversation. Even if it's like, I'm piloting this thing, it's going to be very inexpensive. I just want to work with people to figure out how this works in a curricular way. And not to make an offer and like have a whole sales page and do a whole thing, but have like the conversations you're having, the listening you're doing, the people you're talking to. They're like, oh, I want to be doing this and that. And you're like, well, listen, I've been working on this thing, on this whole structure for helping people do exactly that. Would you be interested in working with me? And just treat it in like a super MVP kind of way.
Yeah, that feels good. That feels very natural. Yeah.
I mean, you have the framework now, you have like the opt-in, you have the whatever. So like if you need to sort of like if there's a way in which you want to get people channeled into like a group where you can address them as a group, you can. But getting to the point where you're going to be able to offer like a group program or like a really specific like dun dun dun, we're going to get this done, that may not happen or it may not happen for a while. But I do think that there are people who know you already and would benefit and enjoy working with you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think yeah. And honestly, if I do it in the right way, I can offer it either dirt cheap or for free so I can learn from it. And yeah, just kind of do that listening and gathering insight as I work through it.
Yeah, and I wouldn't necessarily think about doing it for free because yeah, I mean you can, but like a lot of times paying something for
Yeah.
a program is going to help people focus their minds,
Commitment
feel like it's
bias,
a
yeah.
real thing. So it's not about a revenue producing for you because it's not a significant, add to your bottom line, but it is like you are hiring me to do a thing, so there's a clarity of that relationship. So I do think there's value in charging for it regardless.
Mm.
Um, I, yeah, I mean, there are situations in which you could do it for free, but then I would say you would want to have something where people need to apply to like it's
Yeah.
a grant or something. There's some other reason why it's like, it's not just like, hey guys, want help, um,
Yeah.
but much more structured and much more offered in that kind of way.
Yeah. Well, and I think I need to make some decisions around the content that I'm producing around this stuff too, because that even just refocusing on doing that, on making that offer, the very, off the cuff conversational offer, and maybe moving people into a space like I have a Slack group set up. So I just move people into a Slack group and kind of start working with them through that medium. I'm also sending out emails multiple times a week. I have a Substack, and I've been doing that consistently. Both the emails and the Substack I've been writing consistently. And those are both such good containers for specific things.
Mhm.
But again, I'm discouraged because it's the same problem I've always had. I have such a tiny audience, and I spend all my time creating content, and so then I have no time left to grow the audience. So then when I send the content out and I'm not getting any engagement back, I start feeling like I'm shouting into the void. And it's this cycle
Well,
that is very
that's an
discouraging.
easy fix. Stop making so much content. Like, don't send out multiple emails a week. Don't do a Substack twice a week or whatever it is. Cut it in half. There's no
Yeah.
reason to do as much as you're doing. People
Yeah.
don't need that much content, really. I know you have a lot of ideas to share, but reduce it down, more actively reach out to the people who are in your audience individually to engage them. Like,
Yeah.
hey, I was thinking of you when I wrote this thing. You asked me this question and here I'm answering it.
Yeah.
Let me know what you think. Like, you know, like go out into the audience and pull it in. Don't treat this like a traffic oriented thing because it's not. You have a small audience, you know them probably personally. Like these are people who you are acquainted with. Have individual, non-scalable conversations with these people, through your Substack, through email, live, whatever. Get them engaged in this process. You're going to learn so much more from that. It's going to be so much more enjoyable to you. The idea of growing this audience is nice, but is it necessary in order to achieve the goal that you want, which is to be of service with this material, to learn about this material? Like, do you need to actually be growing this audience in this kind of way? Potentially it could grow very organically if you're talking to people actively and they're like, oh, you should come on over to this Substack. It's great, to their friends.
Yeah.
But the idea that you should just be like putting content out and people should somehow then be coming back at you is like,
I know. Yeah. And I see that's what's happening. And I know that's what I'm doing is I'm just producing. This is what I do. I produce. And then when I don't get feedback, I don't get engagement, I start getting discouraged.
Right.
And then
So
I
let's
stop the
stop
content
doing that.
production.
As of this week,
Yeah.
less producing.
Yeah.
And take a look at the list. Who's on it? Who are people who you would like to write a quick personal email to about something you're going to write over the next few weeks? Make
Wow.
yourself a little plan, a networking plan around this
I like that.
content. And really treat this as a relationship marketing, not a traffic marketing offer, where you're really thinking about how can I have these one-on-one conversations around this content and this material and this, thought process. You don't know, again, like it's kind of like Lisbeth was saying earlier, you don't know where that's going to lead. You don't know what it's going to look like, but give it 3 months, 6 months, see what these conversations produce. Are they engaging? Do people keep coming back? Or does it become something that's kind of like, doesn't have its own energy? But give it time to build with just the people you have.
Yeah. And I think that's it. I think I just need to take the pressure off and just give it time, have the conversations. Yeah. I'm in the stage of life where I feel really guilty when I am doing anything that does not produce money.
Okay.
Simply put. So this is something I just need to give myself permission to just do and take my time with and see where it goes. And Yeah.
This is again, it's R&D. And you have to obviously prioritize your company and your copywriting work because that's where you are supporting your family. But in the time that's available for this, treat it differently.
You're right. Thank you.
Yeah.
I knew I needed a reorientation. So thank you.
Mhm. Yeah. Lisbeth.
Yeah, it's a question or something I wonder about because we've become so online,
Mm.
and we also talk about it a lot at the university. I'm in a communication studies department formerly.
Oh,
Um, so what is the difference between online communication and offline? I mean, just a very basic question. And we've become so used to online, but a lot of people end up doing this thing about talking about people or target groups or clumps of people, groups of people, because when you're online, it's like there's a sense of a virtual community out there, or these readers you have, but we don't really know much about them through the tracking and the trafficking, how long they're actually, what they're paying attention to, what they're actually doing, if they're doing the laundry. I mean, you really don't know. I think when I was wondering, as I heard you saying that you want more feedback, it's like, are you expecting people to do that online? Because I would imagine that you would really like perhaps even just a few opportunities as a way to test it, to go out and be with people and do some more professional outreach that's completely analog.
Yeah. I'm going to put a pause on this because
I
Ree
don't
is
know.
pointing out, as
Okay,
she very
we're
well
running out of
ought, I'm
time.
sorry, they
Sorry.
very well ought, that we are running out of time. So, Ree, please take it from here.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's really good to know all the other stuff that's going on, but it's actually been 3 weeks since I opened my mouth in this forum, just because I'm trying not to take up whatever, don't be chattery. I just want to talk about my project tracker, which is underway and thoroughly enjoyable to me. I have it in 2 tiers. I have for my decluttering business, I made myself a fun spreadsheet. And then I don't quite know how to share it. Maybe I can join from my phone also because I
Mhm.
have yeah, so I have a spreadsheet that's just like tasks that are separated into blocks of like there's the interview task and that's broken down, and then there's the pre-launch whatever tasks. And then there's another tab for like the people I interview and more details. So I'm just like building it out like that. And it's very kind of linear and structured.
Mm-hmm.
But then to actually track I guess it's my version of the gold star thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, let's see out there. Um, I have this collage that I started. Um, let's see.
Recording in progress.
So this is muted. Oh, there I am again. Wait. Oh, I see. Does that help? No.
Yeah, it sounds fine.
Okay. Right. I need to turn the camera around. Oh, I see. Start video. Okay. Yeah. So on my wall, I have this roll of paper, and it's like I have this desk on the floor.
Slow down there. Slow down.
Okay. So there's this piece of paper,
Here, I'm gonna.
and then if we zoom in, this kind of central thing,
Mhm.
that's the start of the project. And
Okay.
then each of these arrows is an interview.
Oh, cool.
So then I have a little pile of other shapes. And then I have this other project where I'm working on calendars, and I wanted it on the same thing. So I made the calendars. When I work on a calendar, I give it one of those shapes. And then we'll see. If I keep working on it, it will take up the field. And if I drop it, it will just be those shapes in a corner.
I think that looks great. Is it fun to work with it.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, that's so part of what's going on for me. So I'm just going to quit that now
Hmm.
because you saw it, unless you want to see it again.
No, it's fine. I pinned it so everybody could see it. Like I made it big. So
Great. Thanks. I just, okay. Distracting for me. Yeah, so I'm having this, there's something about the clarity that I'm starting a decluttering business and the fact there's something about it. Like I feel clear, happy, excited, not so much pressure, but just like the potential. And I'm taking steps and I'm doing it really gently and small steps. I'm not making myself do it, but I'm allowing it.
mhm.
And that has been feeding into my creative life in a way that I haven't experienced in years. Like it just, so everything is, it's like it's keeping a kind of balance for me, even though it's barely a thing yet. The
That's
clear intention has allowed this unfolding. So it's like easy to make the spreadsheet. It's super fun to make this, and it's not very time consuming. Like once I made the decision to do it, like the little shapes take seconds to draw. And then I make a bunch of them at once, and then I just put them aside until like there's actually something to mark. Yeah. And
I
then
love
each
it.
time,
I
like,
think that's great. And I love that this the intentionality around this has been useful and helpful for you.
yeah.
And created that space to be able to take those actions.
Yeah, it's nice having your structure to pour it into. Oh, I'm just in the interview phase. I'm in the interview collating phase. I don't have to worry about client acquisition yet. It'll come. Like there'll be a process for that. Writing
Mhm.
the offering is not satisfying yet. I'm still culling text, but that part feels crunchy, but it's all right.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Well, I mean, coming up with a value proposition and, the messaging and so on is very challenging. It's
Yeah.
very,
And it's just like, I'll just give it time. It'll
yeah,
just take time. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, good.
Reed, if
Um,
you want to talk through your messaging at any point, I would love that.
Okay,
Just to
cool.
have another
Yeah.
conversation with you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. I'd be happy to. I mean, just, I'm not there yet.
Yeah. Whenever you're
Yeah.
ready. It's what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fantastic. I
Awesome.
love
Thank
that.
you so
Um,
much.
and Jennifer, I'd love to hear from you as well. But I want to say before we jump in there, Jennifer, assuming you're still here, I think you are. Um, we have scheduled for next week our quarterly reflection meeting, but I actually am going to propose that we flip it with the week after. There's going to be an email or whatever that goes out this afternoon, but that we wait 2 weeks. And so next week we have another open session and we will start with Ree and Jennifer next week. And then we do the quarterly reflection for the 10th. Thoughts? I mean, I think we have a little more time then to like between things to kind of do the reflecting part, which is what is sort of assigned ahead. But you'll see there's an email and a sort of or a post that's going to go out this afternoon. I guess it's a post showing like pointing to the lesson in the Creative Focus workshop for quarterly reflection. So do that over the next 2 weeks and we'll do that then. Yeah. Jennifer, so how are things going with you?
I'll check in really quickly. Actually, I don't feel like I need a ton of time, so that's it works out well. I created a tracker. I created a bunch of quota tasks for myself, and I've been using it, excuse me, since like mid last week. And I'm finding that the tracker that I created last week isn't right or it's not perfect, but it's giving me a place to start from. And I'm already like iterating it. And I think I might scrap the whole thing and start it. Like I'm just like iterating the process of the tracker itself, which of course then mirrors iteration of the process, the creative process. And so yeah, I've had very low capacity. So I've just been doing what I can, but at least I've been doing something and it's on there. It exists. I have check marks and I have a little column for notes for myself. So every day I'm just like leaving myself a little note about, my thoughts about the process. And I'm hoping that if I get some really good rest over this short break later this week, that I'll come back to it feeling a bit renewed and refreshed, and maybe even have some extra time this weekend to spend on it. So
Yeah,
uh, yeah, feeling okay, feeling pretty good about it.
that sounds great. Yeah, fantastic. Um, yeah, show us next time like what you're like if you do another one, like,
Mhm.
and let's talk about why it wasn't working and
Yeah, and I might not. I might stick with what I have and just keep changing it. I'm not sure. But
yeah,
I'm giving myself that ability to kind of just keep playing with it
for
until it
sure.
feels.
Yeah, because I mean the when we come up with something like a first conception of something, it's often not gonna quite work. And
Mhm.
there's a lot of tweaking that can happen and to make it better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah,
So that's
continue.
me. I was just gonna say I'm all set with that.
Okay, good. So any other comments or questions before we close up for today? Apologies for my lack of time management today.
All
I just
good.
really enjoyed hearing everyone else's experiences because I felt like there was something I could really relate to in all of them. And so
Same.
I get a lot out of listening, and I really appreciate everyone who shared.
I do too.
Yeah,
I do
thanks.
too.
Thanks for saying that. I felt like they were valuable and universal questions. So
And next time
Absolutely.
I would like to let Jennifer and Ree go first.
yes, that's the plan.
I feel like I take up a lot of early time on these calls, and I would like to flip that around a little bit.
Yes, let's do that. Okay, sounds great. Thanks for being here today. And so next week we're gonna have another open call, and then we will do our quarterly reflection the week after that on the 10th. And yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. Jess, we're gonna meet for a couple minutes after, correct?
Oh, yes, yes. Let's
Okay.
do that.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you next time. If you're American, have a great holiday.
Thank you. Take care.
Let me turn my otter off. I
Yeah,
don't think it needs to record the rest of this for everybody else.
exactly.
Come on,
Actually, I'm
Otter.
going to turn the recording off.